your place. Let your kingdom be established. Because you are good. And your mercy endures forever, forever, forever. Somebody say his mercy endures forever. If you came to place, you hope you hallelujah. Arise, O God. Arise, O God. And take your place. And take your place. Let your kingdom be established. Let your kingdom be established. Oh, ancient of days. Oh, ancient of days. You are good. And your mercy endures. Arise, O God, arise. Arise, O God. And take your place. And take your place. We enthrone you in our worship. We enthrone you in our worship. We glorify your name. We glorify your name. You are good. You are good. And your mercy. And your mercy endures forever. Arise, O God. Arise, O God. And take your place. And take your place. We are standing on your promises. We are standing on your promises. The just shall live by faith. You are good. And your mercy endures forever. Arise, O God. Arise, O God. And take your place. Take your place. We have come to give the glory. We have come to give the praise. You are good. And your mercy endures forever. Just lift your hands to him. I gotta move on. I feel the Spirit of the Lord. I feel the Spirit of the Lord. Telling me you ain't in war no more. You got victory. Stop warring with what's in your feet. And claim the victory. Stop warring with politics. You got the victory. Stop warring with disease. You got the victory. Stop warring with the devil. You got the victory. He's worthy of the praise.
Hallelujah. Yes, Lord. Yeah.
He's worthy of the praise.
You're worthy, Jesus.
Bless you, Lord Jesus.
He's worthy of the praise.
Yes.
Lord Jesus.
You can just lift your hands to him.
Thank you, Jesus.
Hallelujah. Thank you,
Thank
Jesus.
you for victory, Jesus.
Yeah.
Something interesting has happened to me this week. Almost it seems like every time I get in the car, I hear this song that says, this is going to be a week of miracles.
Yes.
The first time I didn't think of nothing of it, the second time, but the third and the fourth and the fifth time, I said, God, what are you trying to say to me? Why do I keep hearing this song? I like the song, but I don't like it that much to hear it every time I get in the car. And he said to me, just listen to what they're saying. This is
Yes.
going to be
I receive it.
a week of
Yes, Lord.
not just one miracle, but this is going to be a week of. Anybody need a deliverance?
Yes.
I'm pretty much over my time right now. As I was preparing for this service, God gave me those songs to sing, Arise, O God. He asked me a serious question. He said, why would you need to tell me to arise? Am I not God 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? Do I have all things in control? Am I ever late to the party? Am I not always early or on time? Do I not know everything? Am I not omniscient? Then he said to me, what does my word say? In Isaiah 45, it says, command thou me
Yes.
Speak the word.
concerning the work of my hands. What God wants us to do today in this time of worship is to command him to rise to the occasion and do what only you can do. I said to command him to rise to the occasion and do what only you can do. There was a time when I was watching basketball, and I'm over my time, forgive me. When the Chicago Bulls needed 2 points. Some of y'all watched it with me. And the Utah Jazz had the ball. But Michael Jordan stole the basketball. Then comes down and hits the game-winning shot because the Chicago Bulls needed him to rise to the occasion. God is saying today, there are times when I need you to command me to rise to the occasion. There are times when I want you to tell me to be my healer, to be my provider, to be my way maker, to be my defense, to be my refuge, to be my source. Lift your hands to him. How do you command God concerning the work of his hand? Real simple. You command him with his own words. You say, by your stripes I'm healed.
Yes, Lord.
You say, I am the lender and not the borrower. You said you would never leave me nor forsake me. You said no weapon formed against me would prosper. And you're not a man that you would lie. So I give you glory. Because this is going to be. And we of miracles. This is joy to me. A week of prosperity. A week of blessing. So I lift my hands to you, Jesus. I praise you today, Jesus. I give you glory today, Jesus. I give you praise. I give you praise. Father's Day, we bring you greetings from Refuge Church of God in Christ. I am Pastor Joe, and I am the executive pastor. And of course, we are the representatives of our senior pastor, my father, the greatest father that I have ever known, Superintendent Joseph Titus Williams, and we thank God for him, his beautiful wife. I thank God for my beautiful wife, and for all of the people of God that are supporting us. We thank you for allowing us onto your mobile devices. We thank you for allowing us into your homes. But more importantly, we thank you for allowing us into your hearts, into your minds, into your souls. Happy Father's Day to all of the men. We thank God for the spirit of excellence and praise and worship that has ushered us into this great atmosphere that makes preaching the Word of God just a bit easier as we are facing some uncertain and difficult times. But we know that God is yet still in control and that we have nothing to fear as long as He is with us, and He is indeed with us. The word of the Lord is going to come to us today from the 26th chapter of the book of Genesis, the book of beginnings. And it reads, "For all the wells which his father's servants had digged in the days of Abraham his father, the Philistines had stopped them and filled them with earth. And Abimelech said unto Isaac, Go from us, for thou art much mightier than we. And Isaac departed thence, and pitched his tent in the valley of Gerar, and dwelt there. And Isaac digged again the wells of water which they had digged in the days of Abraham his father. For the Philistines had stopped them after the death of Abraham, and he called their names after the names by which his father had called them. And Isaac's servants digged in the valley, and found there a well of springing water. And the herdmen of Refuge strived with Isaac's herdmen, saying, The water is ours. And he called the name of the well Esek, because they strove with him. And they digged another well, and strove for that also. And he called the name of it Sitnah. And he removed from thence, and digged another well, and for that they strove not. And he called the name of it Rehoboth. And he said, For now the Lord hath made room for us, and we shall be fruitful in the land. And he went up from thence to Beer-sheba, and the Lord appeared unto him the same night, and said, I am the God of Abraham thy father. Fear not, for I am with thee, and I will bless thee, and multiply thy seed for my servant Abraham's sake. And he built an altar there, and called upon the name of the Lord, and pitched his tent there. And Isaac's servants digged a well." The word of the Lord is rich, it is powerful, and blessed. And we are coming to you. Our thought today is just keep digging. Just keep digging. Spirit of fatherhood. We thank you that you are God, our Father, and we can lean, depend, and trust on you to be our protection, to be our provision, to be our provider. We thank you, God, that you have prepared a word for your people. Prepare now your people to receive your word, and let the words of my mouth, meditations of my heart, be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength, rock, and redeemer. Amen. One of the great misnomers that is doing significant damage in our communities is this idea that black men are absent fathers. The erosion of fatherhood is actually, across all levels, a spiritual attack upon the family that has and will continue to have devastating effects upon society. Why, you may ask? Well, there are so many reasons. The first is that men represent the position of God as our Father in the earth. Let us not make the mistake of gender bias to the exclusion of our women. That is not the case here. We were all, male and female, created in the image of God. We are all pictures of God. The man, however, shows us a depiction of God specifically as Father. In that role, God the Father is responsible for a few things. He's responsible for influencing and establishing the way that we think. God the Father establishes prohibitions and boundaries. God the Father influences and informs the truth that our differences help us to clearly be defined, and it is in our differences that we find those things that make us special. We see these three actions portrayed clearly in the second chapter of the book of Genesis, the detailed creation account of both Adam and Eve. After God establishes the Garden of Eden, he placed Adam in the garden with a specific set of responsibilities. I hope that you've read it before, but if you have not, God places Adam in the garden, and Adam has specific responsibilities. They were to dress and to keep the garden. The Hebrew word for dress is pronounced avad, and one of its meanings is simply to go to work. But another more latent meaning is that avad means to worship. In context, they are used interchangeably because the work aspect of worship will find that I demonstrate how I honor what I have been given by how well I take care of it. That, my brothers and sisters, is what true worship is. It's not slow songs that we sing during the church service, but worship is an action that is contingent upon how I treat that which has been entrusted in my care. We might not think of it as such, but it is a very masculine task in its essence, much unlike the feminized version of what worship has devolved into today. God is the one who established for the man to set this role of order for the Father. The Father is the worship leader and supposed to be the example of what worship is for his family. This was not Eve's responsibility, as when you read this chapter, you will find that she was not even created when God gave Adam this task to dress and to keep the garden. So God influences the way that we are supposed to think. So after God gave Adam his initial assignment, he then gave Adam boundaries. Adam, you can eat of any fruit of the tree that you like except one, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. God established a clear boundary. Why? Because boundaries establish order. And whenever God gives a prohibition, it is because he is trying to prevent you from making a mistake from which you may not recover. You see, the knowledge of good and evil was not supposed to come from a tree, but it should have been disseminated from God to Adam via their relationship one with the other. And anytime we circumvent God's order, then we essentially rob God of his authority as God. And we find ourselves in disorder. This is why boundaries are important. This is why boundaries such as gender are important. That decision cannot be made by feelings. It cannot be made by what you feel like being or what you feel that you identify as. That decision should only be made by the eternal supreme being capable enough to create something from nothing. To create from nothing that which gender is and is not. So when God created Adam and then looked at the work, God found it necessary to create something that would help Adam fulfill Adam's responsibility in the earth. I'm about to get in trouble with some of you because it was not the other way around. Society has reduced the divinely created concept of marriage into a union that is driven by what the woman desires. We as a people, as a society, are becoming more female focused, which means that decisions are not being influenced by responsibility, thoughts, and boundaries, but they are instead being driven by emotions, feelings under the perception of freedom. And so if you feel a certain way, then you should do what thou wilt. If you understand this quote, it is a direct quote from Aleister Crowley, the father of the occult religion, Thelema. This man has been touted by some as the evilest man in the world. He has a mantra that says, do what thou wilt. The idea that your feelings are the primary element that is supposed to inform your actions is actually rooted in Satanism. And our enemy has a way of making these diabolical things sound wonderful. So do what you want to do sounds like a good thing. Love who you want to love sounds like a great thing. Having marriage equality sounds really justified. A woman's right to choose are all mantras that sound nearly biblical, but they are fostering in a mindset of Satanism that is actually destroying America. I'm about to give you one more that I wholeheartedly believe in. And if you stand with me and shout Black Lives Matter, as I and others have been shouting and plan to as Christians, you need to make certain, people of God, please hear what I'm saying, that you stand in support of the sentence in and of itself. But please proceed with caution concerning the principles behind the movement. Here I am standing with the Black Lives Matter shirt telling you that you need to stand in support of the sentence, but proceed with caution concerning the principles behind the movement. Why, Pastor? Why are you telling us this? Because you will find on their website some disparaging ideas that are in direct contrast to what we believe. They are clear to, quote, make space for transgender brothers and sisters to lead, unquote. They are clear to, quote, dismantle cisgender privilege and uplift black trans folk, end quote. In case you don't understand what that is, cisgender is, in my opinion, a largely useless word that describes how life has been lived for nearly 10,000 years. Cisgender simply means people who find their personal identity and gender from their birth sex. Pretty much, duh. I identify as a man because that is how God created me. And if you find your identity in your gender, I'm sorry, but Black Lives Matter would challenge that there is something inherently wrong with how you think, as if we have not been thinking this way for 10,000 years. They are a, quote, queer affirming organization, unquote, who stand against what they call, quote, the tight grip of heteronormative thinking. You probably need me to define that as well. It is another silly worldview that heterosexuality is normal. Black Lives Matter, as one of their principles, stands against that. Think about that for a moment, people of God. This is what we are left with as black Christians in America. The loudest voice pushing basic human rights for black people is a group that has as one of its foundational principles the idea that heterosexuality is abnormal. And perhaps the most damaging and misleading principle of Black Lives Matter is they, quote, disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure, end quote. As such, these people are people that look like us, that act like us, talk like us, but they are guilty of perverting the old African proverb that says it takes a village to raise a child, to essentially mean that the village does not need defined roles for its participants. They may not be aware, but these thoughts, I want you to hear me clearly, these thoughts are fueled by white supremacy. Why are you saying that, preacher? First of all, the nuclear family is not a westernized concept. It is divine order that was established by God way back in the Garden of Eden in the book of Genesis by God himself. White people in the West did not invent marriage. And to think that falsely ascribes to them a level of superiority that history will prove they have not earned. The Black Lives Matter idea of a village is in direct contrast to what the African proverb is admonishing. The proverb is simply calling for unity within the community that will ensure that none of our children will be left behind. It's not just about me and mine, but I will step in and help you with yours because we are in this thing together. Unfortunately, within Black Lives Matter, they are speaking to a white supremacist idea that black men are absentee fathers. And as such, we need a village to fill in the gaps that they have left open because of their absenteeism. So we don't need clearly defined roles as men and women because since we have an absence of men, the women can do the job just as effectively. What you need to hear, people of God, is that absentee black fathers and black children living in fatherless homes is a myth that is steeped in white supremacy that has been perpetuated by the media for years, and statistics simply prove it to be false. The CDC, which is the Center for Disease Control, reports that the majority of black fathers in America actually live with their children. And it is more than those who do not. 2.5 million black men are living in the same homes of their children against 1.7 who are not. Additionally, according to a study released by the Chicago Reporter, with the same findings being confirmed with the Huffington Post, quote, whether living in the same home or not, black fathers are the most involved of all primary recorded race and ethnic groups. You didn't hear what I said. The Huffington Post and the Chicago Reporter reports that whether they're in the same home or not, black fathers are the most involved of all primary recorded race and ethnic groups. But if you turn on your TV, you will think that black fathers have somehow disappeared. The statistics prove that we should be celebrated. But if you buy into societal myths, we continue to be marginalized. They don't want you to know about the black fathers who do their daughters' hair, who cook for their wives, who coach their sons, and are regularly helping children with their homework assignments over and above all other fathers in America, because it proves that in spite of institutionalized racism that ripped us from the women and the children that we loved in order to serve George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Robert E. Lee, Jefferson Davis, and the likes of every plantation owner who owned a slave. In spite of the prison industrial complex that seeks mass incarceration to separate us, in spite of the war on drugs and police brutality, some kind of way, black men have been able to rise above it and become the best fathers of all fathers in America in their children's lives. We are above it, and we are protectors. We are providers. We will keep the peace, and we will make the peace. We have not been stopped, and we will continue to rise as our fathers rose before us and their fathers did before them. And so to all of my fathers out there today, I have a word of encouragement for you, and that is simply keep on digging. This is where we find ourselves in the text with a story of transgenerational excellence. Isaac is literally following in the footsteps of Abraham, his father, to such a degree that there are some who feel like the story has been redacted because it appears that history is repeating itself. Bible scholars will note that when Abraham went in to Egypt, he told his very fine wife to act like you're my sister, because she was so fine at her advanced years old, meaning she probably looked like a sister, that they were going to kill the man in order to have her. Well, when we come to the 26th chapter of Genesis, Isaac finds himself in a similar position. Check what's happening to Isaac. He's living under the direct threat of death because those in government find it easier to kill the man in order to control the woman. Those in government find it easier to kill the man in order to control the family. And so in order to protect themselves in a land that is not theirs, they have to develop survival skills by pretending to be something that they are not. Why? Because who they really are is a threat to the governmental establishment as it is today. And who they really are is a reminder of past greatness that was able to circumvent racial prejudice and step into a place of great promises. They are a reminder that the governments that are ruling the day don't have respect for the generations that came before and will consistently break promises that have been given. Let me see if I can work real hard. Abraham was a great man, so much so that Abraham was able to dig wells and find water in the desert. After the conflict with Abraham's wife Sarai and Abimelech, because Abraham had such great skills, the government entered into a covenant that was supposed to extend beyond Abraham's life and into the life of Abraham's descendants. So when Isaac comes back to the same place that his father established to reclaim the wells that were rightfully his, he did so because number one, they belonged to his father. But number two, they should have been protected under the law. But what happened with Isaac is an age-old tale. When he comes to get what belongs to him, he was met with hostility. An attempt was made on his wife, which according to of the perceived privileged status that assumes that everything that you have of value somehow belongs to me, even when I did not work for it. Isaac comes and finds that the wells that Abraham had dug had been stolen and had been filled with dirt, robbing Isaac of the rightful inheritance that his father had left for him. But Isaac would not allow the current events of privilege and second-class citizenry to destroy them. Isaac said, my daddy worked hard to get me here. And what you've done is you've been intentional at stopping the progress that my father made so that you can keep me underneath your thumb. But Isaac said, I've got a plan. You stop up the wells, I've got 2 hands and a shovel, and I will dig them out. And the Bible says that the first well that Isaac dug out was a well called a sek. A sek means contention. The next well was called sitna, and sitna means hatred, enmity, or strife. When Isaac was digging the wells, he was prophetically pointing to what the black father has been living with in the United States of America. The things that our forefathers worked hard to leave for us have only been put to a place where they've almost been destroyed. And when we go to work, we're working only to be met with contention, strife, enmity, and outright hatred. And it seems that no matter how smart we are, It seems that no matter how talented we may be, it seems that no matter how driven and strong we are, that this is the fruits of the wells that we have. But you need to know that the story does not end there. That the Bible says that Isaac found the strength to dig one more well, and he found out and dug another well. But this time, that the people that stopped him before were not around. And the Bible says that Isaac called the new well Rehoboth, which simply means that the Lord has made room for us, and we shall be fruitful in the land. This is why you got to keep digging, because after hatred, after enmity, after strife, after contention, the Lord is going to make room and give you fruitfulness and give you strength. It does not matter how many promises that have been broken. It does not matter how many times they claim to fix the system. It does not matter how many times they told you a lie. If you are a father today, just keep digging, because one day they're not going to be able to put you in strife no more. One day not going to be able to contend with you no more. One day the Lord will bring you to a place of fruitfulness and open up your space. You gotta keep digging. Keep digging for your children. Keep digging for your nephews. Keep digging for your nieces. Keep digging. Keep digging. Because no matter what they have done, if you keep striving, you're stronger than you've ever been. You got to keep digging for your neighborhood. Keep digging for the boy on the street. Keep digging for Emmett Till. Keep digging for Sandra Bland. Keep digging for Breonna Taylor. Keep digging for Walter Scott. Keep digging for Trayvon Martin. Keep digging for Eric Garner. Keep digging for George Floyd. Keep digging for Rayshard Brooks. Keep digging for the 4 million that died before. Keep digging because of the slave trade. Keep digging because of the mill passage. Keep digging because of the prison industrial complex. Keep digging for the affirmative action. Keep digging for the civil rights act. Keep digging until your change comes. Here, get you a shovel and dig out of poverty. Dig out of depression. Dig out of sickness. Dig out of everything that's done your life. And God will make a way. If you believe that you got strength to keep digging, type it in the comments. I will keep digging. I will keep digging. I'm digging for the one that came before. I'm digging for the one for these wounds. But I'm digging so that I will get what the Lord to me. And the Bible says that the Lord came and said, I am your God, the God of your daddy. Keep digging. So the Lord shows up and said, I am God. I digging. It stopped up the wells. It stopped up the progress that your father made. Because you got the same DNA, all you got to do is what your daddy did. Keep digging. That's why we're marching. That's why we're protesting. Because the progress that should have been made in the 40s, we're still fighting for today. But you couldn't stop us then. You won't stop us now. We're going to keep digging. Keep building. Keep fighting. Keep striving. Until God shows up. It says the enemy that you see today, you won't see no more. It's so wonderful when you look at the story of Abraham, the man who essentially did the impossible. He found water in a desert. The water he left, meaning that the citizens of the country that he left could reap the benefits of what he left. But instead of reaping the benefits, they destroyed it rather than give him credit for building it. Yes, sir. So when Isaac shows up ready to claim what is rightfully belongs to him, he found that it's been all but destroyed and stolen from him. God was with him. And he kept digging. And I want to tell somebody today, God is with you. You just got to keep digging. The minister of music already told us this is going to be a week of miracles. And I'm just crazy enough to believe that if you keep doing what you need to do, God is going to release the miracle that you need in your life. In a drought, Isaac sowed and received a perfect 100-fold harvest. Because God is with him. I want to challenge you today to do the same. And as you come to your point in your moment of giving, to sow something just a little bit extra for the miracle that you are expecting to receive. I'm not going to tell you what to do. You already know how to give. Cash App, hashtag Refuge, Kojic, text the number 77977 Refuge Chesapeake, all of that. But be intentional about what you're going to sow. And watch God bless you. Watch God give you the harvest that you need. Because if you keep digging, you force him to show up in your situation. Father, I want you to bless everybody under the sound of my voice. Every family, every household. Bless every cell phone, every tablet, every hand that holds them. Give them the blessing, the miracle that they need. If there is healing, God heal. If there is deliverance, God deliver. If there is a need for salvation, God, show yourself mighty and bless your people. We're standing in victory today. I see victory. I see miracles. I see glory. And I pray that the Lord bless you, cause his face to shine upon you and give you peace. If there is anything that you need from us, please offer no resistance and hesitation in contacting us. We are here for you. To all of my fathers, you be blessed. You keep doing what you're doing and watch God do what he does best.